G'day, boys and girls.
Hey, Jono, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, my friend. We are back. We are live. We weren't last week,
Right.
and we will explain why in just a minute. Just let everybody know who is tuning in. Go ahead and leave some comments. We love your comments. We'd love to read your comments on Ross's YouTube channel there. We can see who
Absolutely.
you are. That would be grand. Where to kick off? Actually, before we talk about that, just a reminder to everybody, because there has been a bit of inquiry of late, there is still room on the Tanakh tour. Everyone's going, is there still room? Is there still room? Can we still get on there? Yes, you can. Both legs of the Tanakh tour. First leg, of course, being Egypt and Jordan this coming November, kicking off on the 31st of October.
Yep.
And the second leg, of course, kicking off on the 12th of November in Israel. Both tours are available at the moment, and we would love for you to join us. TanakhTours.com. You see on your page, TanakhTours.com. Now, so we didn't go live last week, and the reason for that, of course, is that you were gallivanting around the countryside. Well, you weren't really. You were in North Carolina. G'day, Dave, and Dave was there as well.
That's right.
Both of you guys, Dave Tyler and you find yourself giving presentations at the 80th annual UIWU conference.
Yep. It was
And
nice. You know what I got to ask more than anything?
what's that?
Hey, Jono couldn't make it this year. They expect you to be here every year. You were here last year, thanks to the Tylers.
G'day,
And
Frankie. Frankie was there, wasn't she?
hey, Frankie, how's it
No,
going?
it's DJ.
All right, there you go. It's DJ.
Hey.
Yeah. Hey,
All
DJ,
right.
how are you? And Mommy, both of them. Hey, look, no, but they really did. So I guess we need to really work on getting you here for the 81st annual conference.
There you go.
Maybe if you come back to the States, we'll bring you somewhere other than Louisiana, although it's not bad to be in Louisiana.
I loved it. I
Yeah.
loved it.
Hey,
G'day, Mark.
Mosley.
I would love to return. I've got a lot of stuff going on at the moment, and we'll talk about that some other time.
Yep.
But it was broadcast live. I watched your presentation. I watched Dave's, and excellent stuff. Now, leading up to the 80th annual conference, you were debating, what am I going to talk about? You've got so much stuff going on at the moment. You're writing like 47 books or something.
Right.
And it's difficult to choose which fascinating topic to focus in on. And you were bouncing some ideas off me. I think I'm going to do this. I think, no, I'm not going to change. I'm going to do this now. And then you ended up doing what you did present. One of the things that you were toying with that didn't quite make it to the conference was in regards to the 10 words.
You were disappointed, by the way. You were disappointed. I could tell.
You can tell I was secretly disappointed, but I understand why. No, because we've discussed this for some time.
Yeah.
And it's very important. It has to be done. And you decided you were going to make it the topic of your presentation. But as you researched and prepared, you realized that you had bitten off more than you could chew. There was only an hour time to make a presentation at the UI conference, and it would not have done justice to the topic, and that's fair enough.
Yeah.
So we decided, now that you've done all this research, and it would make, and will, I really do hope that you do turn this into a book, because I think it's imperative, that we would touch on that research and unpack it a little bit, because this is a topic that we have touched on before.
Yeah.
Briefly as an overview, maybe a couple of times, but in depth and with other ancient sources, which is what we're going to attempt to do in the coming weeks, we have not yet done. And I think, honestly, what we're about to do is one of the most important things.
Yeah, I agree, Jono.
Hey, Patty.
There's no topic that deserves more attention than the topic of the 10 words. You know, I just look back. I couldn't remember when I did it. You know, classes run together when every Saturday you teach a class. And I did a series. I don't know if you remember, but back in 2020, between April, about this time, actually. In fact, I think my first class in this series was April, towards the end of the month. I taught from April to August of 2020 on the 10 words.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was just beginning to get into one of the versions of the 10 words that we're going to include in our discussions. So I didn't really know about it. And primarily that series, um, I focused on Exodus and Deuteronomy, if you remember. I sort of really focused on Exodus 20, Deuteronomy 5
Hmm.
from the Masoretic text, from the Bible, our Hebrew Bible. And that's really the main bulk of that. And that was 15 Saturdays, an hour each.
Mm,
But I think that now that you and I have really been delving into this sort of a careful look at the text, a critical look at various versions and so forth, we're going to bring a lot more to the table. I mean, we're
mm,
talking about the Decalogue. I love that phrase, by the way, the Decalogue, the 10 words.
mm.
But like you said, we're going to bring in some other versions. I think it's going to be fun.
It's going to be good. Marianne just said, yes, yes, the Decalogue. Hi,
Hey,
guys. She said,
Marianne.
g'day, Marianne, and truthful kindness. G'day. Thanks
Hello,
for tuning
hello.
in. Now, just to remind everyone, because I often take for granted, that people just know things. I know that everyone who's tuning in probably knows all of this. That's fine. But um, why is the 10 words so important? A lot of people think that, and I used to think, and you probably did too, that the reason for belief, the beginning of the book that sparked everything else, is Bereshit, chapter
Yeah,
1.
yeah,
Genesis, as if it's chronologically, it begins right here, and this is the reason. There was creation, and this is the story, and this is the reason why we believe everything else on top of that. And that's not the case. The center of the entire faith of the Hebrew Bible, the very center of the entire faith of the Hebrew Bible, is the 10 words. Why is it the 10 words? Because here is where God speaks to the nation of Israel audibly. They audibly hear the voice of God collectively, and he speaks to them from Mount Horeb, the 10, or Mount Sinai, depending on which
yeah,
version you're reading, the 10 words. And this overwhelming encounter serves as the revelation narrative of the entire book. This is the reason why that such a powerful experience is carried forward, Ross.
yeah. Hey, by the way, hey Pam, hey Lee. I assume Lee is there as well.
Hmm.
Your one of your favorite verses, if I remember right, is Exodus 19:9. Is it not?
Yes, yeah, quite
And
right.
and what does that verse say? Does it relate? Isn't it about how? I'll let you tell them.
Well, I'd like to paraphrase it this way. God is speaking to Moses, and he says, "Listen, I'm going to come and speak to the people. I'm going to
Yep.
come and speak to them audibly, collectively, so that they will believe in you
Right.
forever."
Right.
And this I find, and it actually says, "I believe in you, Moses,
Yeah.
forever." In other words, this is going to be an impactful and irreversible interruption into human history
Right. That's a good way
of
to
the
put it.
divine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Uh,
I agree. I think that it is essential. It's bedrock. If we don't get this, then everything else. Of course, I love the patriarchal narratives. I love all of. I love some better than others,
sure.
but in particular, it is this episode in which God intervenes in history. I know in Deuteronomy chapter 4, it's called this great thing.
Hmm.
This great thing is the way it's described. And truly, what is described in the Pentateuch as that interruption into human affairs where the God of all creation speaks audibly to an assembled nation from the mountain, from the midst of the fire, on the day of assembly, it's called. This is it. I mean, there's nothing else as important as this.
And it serves. Maybe I can put it this way, and maybe someone could put it in better words. But it serves as a moment in time where God has chosen to plant seed of principle and values, perhaps we could say, into society via Israel. He's taken Israel, and he's like, you guys are the fertile soil
Yeah.
in which I will plant this seed, and it will come with blessings and curses. It has incentive. It's going to go forward. You're going to observe it. You're going to and it's planted into this people and continues and is expanded throughout the world with some variation and
Yeah.
theological distortion and so on and so forth. But nevertheless, carries many nations forward as the basis of their values, their principles, even law, um, and accelerates them so. DVDCNLY. I don't know how to pronounce that, but hi.
I do. I do. It's
Who's that?
David. It's you have to learn to read without vowels. We're talking about Hebrew.
Oh, it's David Conley.
Yeah,
Yes.
of course. David Conley. I saw David this past weekend. David is a good
G'day,
friend.
David.
He's
How
been
are
to
you, mate?
Israel. He's worked
I
in
know
the
you.
desert in the summer.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me say, one of the things that I'd love to get into, you and I have a lot of philosophical almost discussions
Mm,
that never get published, in a way.
mm,
And I think some of those talks have been some of the most inspiring to me. And I want to get into some of that. We've talked about and actually debated over the past few years is, because people want to know. I
definitely.
mean, the 10 words were given to Israel and to, I guess, others who left Egypt with them. But are the 10 words, and we don't have to answer this now, but are they for everybody? And if they're not for, like, they're part of the covenant with Israel, I get that they are the covenant with Israel.
Mm,
But can those who are not Jewish, like I've tested DNA, I've done 23andMe. As
yep.
far as I know, I am from the northwestern Europe, and some might say, well, you may be from the lost tribes. We can get into all that. But my main point is, what happens when the 10 words, let's say somebody like me who has no known genetic connection with Am Israel, the people of
Mm.
Israel, can I keep them? Should I keep them?
I love
What's,
this question.
yeah, I know you do. See, I
Yeah.
set you up, man. I gave you
No, I love it because there is, because of the nature of religious institution, and the way that we are brought up in that, we're brought up to think that either we're in or we're out, and there's this constant source of or search rather for identity,
yeah,
and wanting to be on the in. For feeling of inadequacy, and when you feel like that, what you're really saying is that there's some sort of supremacy by which you need to be a part of.
yeah,
That's not the case. We are all the creation of the living God, of the Creator God. We're all His children, if you like. Yes, Israel's chosen, but for what? Israel's chosen as I said, the soil in which to plant the seed of these 10 principles and values, these
yeah,
ways to live. If you live by them, then you will benefit in the land that He is giving them, and you will benefit in the land He's speaking to Israel, uh, in which I am giving you, so that you may be on display to the rest of the world.
the old light to the nation kind of thing.
And this is what I love, and I often say this is the scientific method, right? It's observable, it's repeatable.
Yeah,
And in Deuteronomy, is it? You tell me, remind me, is it chapter 4, chapter 6? I always get this
chapter
wrong. Is it
6.
4 6 or 6 4?
I think it's not 6-4, but I think it is 6, maybe.
Where
Uh,
it says, and it elaborates, and it says this also in the Moses scroll, but it elaborates in Deuteronomy. And I'm paraphrasing again. In observing the 10 words,
yeah,
the nations will see and be in awe
right,
of you,
right,
because of the blessing, and say to themselves, check it out. Who is this
yeah,
nation that is so close, that has a God so close to it that they may call on Him, and so on and so forth. And the suggestion certainly is that they would observe and they would think, you know what, we should probably adopt some of this, if not all of it. We
right.
should do likewise. And as I said, that you find this a similar inference in the Moses scroll, Ross.
Yeah, I was going to say there's one passage that it's a commentary. Actually, I'm not much on commentaries, but this, if it will focus, this is a copy of Hertz's Pentateuch and Haftarah. Do you have that? Did on your journey have you gotten that book?
I do actually have that,
Okay, well,
and
that's fine. You don't have to pull it down. I just wanted to read what Rabbi Hertz, the late what do they call the rabbi of all Great Britain,
hmm
decades and decades ago. He's since passed, but here's what he says about the 10 commandments. We're going to talk about 10 commandments versus 10 words, but here's what he said. I love this. The 10 words are commandments, the Aseret HaDevarim, he says in Hebrew, or the Decalogue from Deca, 10, and Logos word, are supreme among the precepts of the Torah, both on account of their fundamental and far reaching importance and on account of the awe-inspiring manner in which they were revealed to the whole nation. Amid thunder and lightning and the sounding of the shofar, amid flames of fire that enveloped the smoky mountain, a majestic voice pronounced the words which from that day to this have been the guide of conduct to mankind.
the
That
guide of
revelation,
conduct. I like that. Yeah.
that revelation was the most remarkable event in the history of humanity. That's what we said, right, Jono?
hmm
It was the birth hour of the religion of the Spirit. I love this phrase, which was destined in time to illumine the souls, order the lives of all the children of men. The Decalogue is a sublime summary of human duties binding upon all mankind, a summary unequaled for simplicity, comprehensiveness, and solemnity, a summary which bears divinity on its face, cannot be antiquated as long as the world endures. Almost.
hmm
It is at the same time a divine epitome of the fundamentals of Israel's creed in life, and Jewish teachers, ancient and modern, have looked upon it as the fountainhead from which all Jewish truth and Jewish teaching could be derived. These commandments are written on the walls of synagogue and church. They are the world's laws for all time. Never will their empire cease. The prophetic cries true. The word of our God shall stand forever.
Oh man, I
I
love that. I
mean,
think that is brilliant. I like that a lot.
it
It's
really
it's
is.
it's worthy of note, by the way. Yes, synagogues and churches, also public halls and
Courthouses.
courthouses,
Yeah,
and in recent decades, I suppose
yeah,
that's being reversed.
that's right.
And I'll just say, so is our culture generally being reversed.
Absolutely.
Um, it is 4:6. So let me just read from 5, actually. This is Deuteronomy. See, I have imparted to you laws and rules as the Lord my God, this is Moses speaking, has commanded me, of course, in the first person,
Yeah,
for you to abide by in the land that you are about to enter and occupy. Observe them faithfully, for that will be the proof of your wisdom and discernment to other peoples.
yeah,
Who, by the way, on hearing all of these laws will say, quote, surely that great nation is a wise and discerning people. For what great nation is there that has a God so close by at hand as the Lord our God whenever we call upon him? Or what great nation has laws and rules as perfect as all this teaching that I set before you today? Um, so there it is.
yeah.
Surely it is for everybody to observe it, and it's supposed to be that way. Like I said, it's observable, it's repeatable. If it works over there, maybe you should try it.
See, and this is one of the conversations that you've really inspired me with. When you think about, we had some conversations in the down hours at Charlotte this past weekend. A lot of sitting around, and like when you were here, where people are kind of grouped and
Mm,
we discuss different things. And I posed the question in our conversation: what would the world be like, Jono, if for one day the whole world picked one of the 10 and just everyone obeyed it, like
mm,
no larceny, no theft,
mm,
however you phrase that, lo tignov, don't steal.
Mm.
What if the whole world did that? You could leave your car unlocked, you could leave your house unlocked, you could lay things around. No one would. I mean, can you imagine a world in which no one stole? Or what
Mm.
about adultery? What if for one day a man, no man on the planet took another man's woman?
Wife.
I
Mm.
mean,
Yeah.
anyway, you get the idea. And so to your point, and you stress this all the time, if one nation, a model nation, a light to the nations, would behave in such a way, and we're not there yet, by the way, that other nations would look on their actions and say, what a wise and understanding people is it? Because they would see, it's observable, they would see the blessing that came
Mm.
from that nation observing these laws. I think it's absolutely fundamental. So,
Mm.
one of the things that I'll start on is, and I think most people know this, but just to make sure that we're all on the same page, we've called this series the 10 words and not the 10 commandments. And I think most people know this, particularly people that listen to you and that listen to me.
Mm. Can
The
I? I'm
yeah,
going to have to interrupt you, and I'm going to tell
okay,
everybody why. My son has just messaged me, right?
yep.
And it's raining outside, and he's messaged and he said, "Look, I'm really sorry to interrupt you. I know you're going live with Ross, but I've locked myself out of the house.
Hey, go do it
You
because
keep talking. I'll be right back."
this is perfect. I've been wanting you to leave. So, so the bottom line is one of the things that I wanted to share is that there are three verses in the Hebrew Bible, three verses in the Pentateuch, actually, which from which we derive actually, it's a false translation, the Ten Commandments. And that's Exodus 34:28, Deuteronomy 4:13, and Deuteronomy 10:4. Most English translations in those three passages render the phrase in Hebrew aseret hadevarim as the 10 commandments. But the word for commandment is generally mitzvot. Tzavah is a command. So mitzvot is the plural and it means that which is commanded or what is commanded. But that's not what these are called. These are called the 10 words, Aseret HaDevarim. And one of the things that's important to recognize is the word devar can mean a word, a thing, a matter. So basically, these 10 represent the 10 matters, the 10 things. Within the 10 words, there are actually more than 10 commandments if you really are strict in understanding that which is commanded. For instance, if you look at the commandment or the word that has to do with the Sabbath, you're going to get more than one commandment for that particular word. You let William in? Is he
No,
okay?
no, I just let him. I waved at him
You
and
just went and waved at him at the.
threw him a
I,
banana. And
I just all I did while you were gone was tell him the three verses where we get the phrase the improper translation
mm,
in commandments. It actually says 10 words.
yeah.
So now I don't want to get into this in depth. Remember, we're shooting for 45 minutes
Oh
and
yeah.
we're 24 minutes in. I'm watching the clock now. But here's what
Okay.
I
All
wanted to
right.
say. Um, how do we get the 10, right? So if you look at Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy 5
Mm,
and you sit down and you attempt to count them, you're not going to find, I always say, you're not going to find Roman numerals in either of those texts.
no.
So, how do we come up with that? That's going to be one of the things we're going to get into.
Hmm.
How do you get the 10? You
Yeah.
know, if you look at them, in fact, we have several different versions. I know you have the Jewish Study Bible, like I have the Jewish
Hmm.
Study Bible, and I'm going to look in one of these. I think it's in Deuteronomy 5 in the Jewish Study Bible. It gives a breakdown on what is number one, what's number two, all the way down to number 10. And while I won't break that down and read the three boring lists, Rabbinic Judaism comes up with one enumeration,
That's right.
Hellenistic Judaism and the church fathers follow another. So,
Hmm.
in other words, Judaism, whether it's Hellenistic or rabbinic, they differ. And then you bring in these others, and then Catholic, and Lutheran have yet another
That's
breakdown
right.
of 10 words.
And there would be no need for these various ways of dividing these passages into 10, except for, as you just mentioned, the three verses that say that there are 10.
That's right.
If those verses, if those simply, if those three verses didn't exist, referring to the 10 words, then no one would be trying to divide these nine into 10.
That's right.
And it would be absolutely fine. But we do have these three verses that testify to the 10 words.
Well, it would
Um,
almost be fine. It
it
would
would
almost be fine.
it would almost be fine, and the reason why it would almost be fine is that even if it didn't mention a number, the fact of the matter is this is the central revelation narrative of the entire book, and they don't agree.
That's
There are
right.
differences between them. Now, people have heard us talk about the 10 words in this light before. We've spoken about how there's nine, not 10. We've spoken about where do they divide, and the different traditions divide them up differently. We've spoken about how there are minor, very minor, but also significant
Yeah,
differences between the two. And if this is the most central revelation narrative upon which the entire book is based, why can't we even get this right?
right.
Deuteronomy and Exodus do not agree. Which one came first? Which one is correct? Because they both can't be. And there is rabbinic commentary that says, well, you see, God spoke both at the same time. And okay,
Yeah,
sure. But if you're not satisfied with that answer, we're going to dive into it. And the reason why this discussion is going to be different, Ross, um, because a lot of people have been keeping up with all the discussions that we've had, and we have touched on those topics before. The reason why this one is going to be different is because we're not just dealing now with Deuteronomy and Exodus. We've spoken recently about the Leningrad Codex, the Aleppo Codex, the Sassoon, which you're buying in what, just a few weeks.
it's
Are you
we
saving
have
up?
to get the money quick.
Have you
Yeah,
got the 50 million yet?
not quite. I'm getting
Come
there.
on, people, you've got to donate. Hey, Dave says good day to William.
Yeah,
I just left him outside, Dave.
yeah,
You
he'll
know,
be okay. He's a
he-
young, strapping youth. But
yeah.
to your point, Jono, there are differences, and both Exodus chapter 20 says these are the words that God spoke. It very
Hmm.
clearly says that, and then it gives what God spoke. And then Deuteronomy 5 says the same thing.
Hmm.
So they can't both. That you really come down to this very hard truth. And by the way, let me just say, the difficult discussions that you've had and that I've had on various shows, I think both of us can honestly say we're done playing games. We want to get serious with the text,
Yeah,
careful with the text, but we're going to be respectful, but we're going to tackle the difficult issues. They
we're
won't
going
hear
to
this
tackle the difficult
conversation.
issues, and the fact of the matter is that these three codexes that I just mentioned are, only in round figures, 1,000 years old. Okay, and what we're going to do is include in this discussion all the ancient copies of the 10 words outside of these. So give us some examples of some of the texts that we're going to include in our analysis going forward, Ross.
Okay. All right, Jono. So this is, you mentioned at the head of the show that I had considered presenting this in Charlotte, but it was just too much for an hour. But because I set up a table, you know me and my tables. I want to look at things side by side for comparison, contrast and comparison. And I pulled into my table the following:
Mm,
Exodus 20, Deuteronomy 5, according to the Masoretic text.
right.
All right. I also pulled Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy 5 from the Samaritan Pentateuch. Do you know that the Samaritan Pentateuch has within the 10, now remember, it depends on where you break it, it has a word that's not in the Masoretic text.
Right. Now, I'm glad you brought this up because,
Mm.
as we just mentioned, three verses saying that there are 10 words. The attempt to break down Exodus and Deuteronomy, though there are nine, to separate either the first or the last, depending on the tradition, religious tradition that you adhere to, in order to make the 10. Now, the Samaritans come up with, recognizing that there are supposed to be 10 words, they come up with another solution. What is that solution?
They put another one in because they realize they only have nine. So
Mm.
if you compare, which we're going to do word by word by word, all the way across the panel, you're going to see that the first 9 are fairly consistent in most ancient versions, but the Samaritan Pentateuch assumes that there are only 9 and needed 10, or someone else might propose, no. And I've heard this and read this. Some propose that the Samaritan Pentateuch represents the original, which does contain 10. Now, we're not going to tell them. Now, I know people are going to Google Samaritan Pentateuch 10 Commandments, but, and I can't stop you from doing that. But don't spoil the fun, people.
Yeah.
We'll get to it eventually. Okay, so we got the Masoretic text, the Samaritan Pentateuch, Exodus, Deuteronomy, and both. I also want to look at a Dead Sea Scroll that is called the All Souls,
Oh, yeah.
All, A-L-L, Souls, S-O-U-L-S, Deuteronomy. It too contains a version of the 10 words. We're also going to take a look at what is called the Nash Papyrus. The Nash Papyrus is a very important document. In fact, for the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, it was the earliest version of all because, look, it's a very ancient version and it contains the Shema, but in a different form than we have in Deuteronomy 6:4, as well as a version of the 10. The question is going to be for us and our listeners, does this one agree with Exodus or does it agree with Deuteronomy? Is it an eclectic text that includes elements of both? Could it be a copy of the original? This is a question we have to ask.
Yeah.
Another one that I have is called, you may have heard of this guy, Moses Wilhelm Shapira.
Rings a bell.
Shapira, M.W. Shapira. He found a manuscript reportedly from the Wadi Mujib, from the Transjordan area, was discovered in the 1860s. Some believed it was authentic. I am one of those. You are one of those. And it contains a different version than is in any of these other versions. But like the Samaritan Pentateuch, it has 10. Very clear,
Clearly.
very clear as to what is what on that particular version. So I am really excited about this study. Look, a couple of things that I want to tell you, Jono, and
I
you,
know you're keeping a couple in your pocket there.
huh?
There's a few others that we're going to pull
Wait,
out, and
give me some more. Let's just add.
no. But we'll keep everyone in suspense. But there are other ancient
There are.
copies, attempts to recollect the 10 words, and we'll be throwing that into the mix as we go forward. But there's just a few, and what we're going to be doing is going through each word and comparing them with each of these texts and seeing where the differences are, how they differ, how they're the same,
That's right.
and asking imperative questions. And so it's really going to be fun. Rossi, you were about to say.
Yeah, I was going to say that of the other versions, we could include, though Greek is not something that I'm good at. We could work through. We have really nice Bible tools, so we could include the Septuagint of Exodus 20, the Septuagint of Deuteronomy 5. But also along the way, we need to ask some very tough questions. You mentioned one. I mean, if both the accounts in Exodus and Deuteronomy, if you forgot every other version that we talked about, both of these accounts claim to be the 10, the 10 words spoken from the mountain on the day of assembly by God. Now, if they're spoken by God, that's a big question. Are they all in the first person? Are any of them in the first person? Do we get something that says, in 7 days, the Lord, Jehovah, Yahweh, created the heavens and the earth, etc.? Or is there any version that says, I, meaning God is speaking first person throughout? And there is one. There's only one in all ancient literature. It's not the Septuagint. It's not the Masoretic text. It's not the All Souls Deuteronomy. It's not the Samaritan Pentateuch. It's not the what else did I say? What was the other one? In other words, I'll tell you which one it was. It was Shapira.
Mm.
That particular manuscript is the only one. So we're going to talk about what that possibly could mean. But the question is, who does the text say spoke these 10 words? And does the text, the way it's worded in any of these ancient texts, fit that check? In other words,
Mm.
could you listen to them and go, yeah, I think that matches.
Hmm.
How were they recorded, Jono? On tablets of stone. What do we know about the makeup of those 10 words? Do we get any indication? You
Yeah,
know?
that's a really good question. Yeah,
Yeah.
and scholars have been debating that for a long time. What would the original 10 words look like? What was the script
Yeah.
that God wrote into the stone?
Yeah, that's right.
And how would that have looked?
Yeah.
Fascinating question. We'll get into that as well.
Now, here's another question. We read in the canonical text, in the Masoretic text, that Moses broke the first set and he had to go back up the mountain and get another set.
Mm.
Who, based on what we know from the text, who is it that, hello, Linda,
Hey, Linda.
who is it that cut out the tablets?
Hmm.
Who is it that wrote on the tablets? Did God write? Did God make one set? Moses made the second set. Did God write on both sets? I
Hmm.
mean, we have to look at that. And then, are there any differences in the accounts of first set, second set? Uh,
Well, now that's a really good question. So let me ask you this, because you've done the research. I don't know the answer to this question, and we'll unpack this obviously in greater detail. But are you telling me that of these other ancient sources, it talks about the post breaking of the first set and the obtaining of the second? You're telling me that there are ancient
yep.
sources that discuss that. Love to look at that. Love to
Yeah,
look at
we,
that.
we we have to, and even within the canonical text between Exodus and Deuteronomy, we have to look at, for instance, the second set is described in Shemot in Exodus 34. It's
Hmm.
also described in Deuteronomy 10. What are the like features of those narrative sections? What are the contrasting narrative sections? So, for instance, Deuteronomy 10, we'll expound this greatly when we get to this point. In Deuteronomy 10, we read for the first time that Moses made an ark for the 10
Hmm.
for the two tablets. Well, that's not what we read in Exodus, Leviticus, Number. I mean, there it's Bezalel and Aholiab. So who
Mm.
made the ark?
Hmm.
I mean, and by the way, Deuteronomy 10 agrees with Moses making this box, this chest, if you will, for the 10 words, with one of the other manuscripts that we have.
Mm.
So
Is
which
that right?
one?
That's right.
Yeah,
Okay.
it does. Now, here's something in Deuteronomy. Consistently, the 10 words are referred to as the covenant, the
Hmm.
Brit. It's called the Brit.
Sure.
But what's interesting is there is another word that occurs more than 100 times in the Pentateuch for these two stone tablets. It's the adut. Adut is the word. But do
Hmm.
you know that, interestingly enough, even though it appears in that it's called that all the way through Exodus and and through the Tetratuch, if you will, well, not Genesis, but Exodus, Leviticus, no, it's called the adut, but it's never called the adut in Deuteronomy. Why do we have that difference? Why is it
Mm.
that, because everything is built on the adut? James Tabor taught a wonderful class years ago on To the Torah and the Testimony, and he highlighted this idea of the adut. But I recently discovered that adut, as popular as it is, never occurs in Deuteronomy. But
Hmm.
remember, we have the covenant, the box, the ark of the adut of the testimony, the ark of the testimony. We have
Mm.
the tent of the testimony, never occurs in Deuteronomy, but we
Right.
still have it. So what is this? And so we're going to have to unpack that.
So
I,
differences and similarities going forward in the various ancient sources, not just Deuteronomy and Exodus, but various ancient sources to do with and recounting the 10 words, is what we plan to look at. And we haven't done this before. And this is exactly what we want to highlight. I'm really excited about this. And this falls right into our agenda of biblical criticism, Ross.
That's right.
Mm.
It fits well within this, and you and I discussed this. We don't want people to think, well, wait a minute, they just started this podcast on the criticism of the Hebrew Bible, and now they're jumping ship. No, 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 we're not
No,
jumping ship. We're taking
we're
some of the
diving into the
things.
deep end.
That's right. And
Yeah.
why not start with the most important set of words? Now, some people might say, we really shouldn't make one commandment or one set of instructions more important than anything else. Well, I am. I'm going
Mm.
to clearly do that because these are the only 10 words, according to the Hebrew Bible, that were spoken audibly to the entire nation. It is the covenant. It is something that we should know, memorize, teach to our children, write upon our heart, write upon our doorpost. Speak of these words when you rise, when you lie down, when you go about, so forth.
Hmm.
These words, you can't get any more important than this. So we need to take everything that we've learned and studied over the past several years, Jono, and we need to respectfully apply these tools to the 10 words.
Mm.
I mean, if we can't get this right, then I think we're in trouble.
Yeah. This is the center. This is the begin. This is the beginning. In the beginning, I mean, really, it the the center of the faith, the beginning of the faith, is this moment at Horeb. In the beginning, God spoke to the people at Horeb, and upon this, everything else is based.
That's
This is
right.
where we're beginning. This is where we're diving in, and as I mentioned, unlike other discussions that we've had about this topic, we're going to be pulling in all the other ancient sources that talk about it, sources that are impressively older than the ones that we've been dealing in our Bibles.
Yeah.
Uh, Ross.
One of the things that I wanted to put on the screen is I know a lot of people watch on YouTube. I'm trying to encourage people to click the subscribe on my YouTube channel. And if
Hmm.
they click the subscribe button, because some people just go to the YouTube channel and they watch it, but I'm really encouraging people to subscribe because anytime we go live
It's
on
going to
that
let you know.
channel, they get notified, and you can
Hmm.
actually cater or select how you want to be notified. You can click the subscribe, and then you can go down and drop down and say, give it to me all, everything that comes out. So I
Do it right
really
now,
want
dear
people to do
listeners,
that.
dear viewers. Go and subscribe and like this this program because it does help us. It lets us know that you're. We like to be liked. By the way, this one is now available in Kindle, and
That's right.
yeah, okay. So you have that one. This is the one that we're going to be centering on, of course, going forward, as you well know. If you haven't got it yet, you need to get it. Order it today because you're going to want to refer to this as we go forward.
One
I
other
think,
thing, Jonah,
yeah,
on that point, I plan to post some documents that you and I have worked on together, some comparison charts and things like that. And
hmm,
so I'll come up with a way, you and I will discuss this. We'll come up with a way to make this accessible, perhaps posting it on Truth to You
hmm,
and posting it on my website, just because we want people to have access to things that we're talking about, PDFs, things of that nature,
hmm.
because it's going to make it a lot easier to follow what we're talking about. On my academia page, I have several documents, and
Yes,
we'll get people to download those as well. So,
good stuff. Support Ross's Patreon. There's the link there, QR code. Jump on that. Would appreciate it. And there's some added advantages to that too, and you'll see that when you go there. We have done this. We've got 30 seconds to go. Look at this. We've never done this before.
it's perfect. It's perfect. Don't
So
we?
next week, listen. Next week
Yep.
we're going to be looking at the first word
Yep.
and dealing with that and seeing how that is represented in various texts. That is our plan for this time next week, dear viewers. Thanks for jumping in and saying good day. We like to hear from you. If you have any questions, certainly leave them here or on Truth to You or wherever it may be, and we will address those. Ross, final thoughts.
Yeah. Final thought is don't miss next week. You have to be here for Word One next
Yep.
Thursday night, 8 p.m. Central Time. And look, share this podcast around. We've now listed it on my YouTube channel as a podcast. It puts it in a different algorithm. So I want people to share this around. That
Like,
is it.
subscribe, share. See you
That
next week.
is it. See ya.
Have a good one.